demonstration video on how to make test tiles when you are getting ready to test all kinds of new and wonderful glazes that are part of your experimentation in finding your body of work. So I've got about 2.5 pounds of clay here on this Medex bat, and I'm just going to press it out into a pretty wide pancake. So the heel of my hand is just pushing the clay out. Now I'm going to open this clay all the way to the bat. And this happens to be very firm clay. You don't need to use firm clay. It's just I'm using it because I found it. And I'm going to open it up with kind of a bevel to the floor. It makes it easier to move clay out if you have a bevel as opposed to a straight wall. So now I'm going to put a little moisture on here. I'll moisten your bat before you move it out so that the clay will stick to it. And now my hand, without my wrist being overextended, is over the clay, and I'm pulling out with my fingers, and my hand is against the clay here, compressing it against the clay. And I'm going to pull it out towards myself, slowly, with a lot of compression. You don't want this clay to lift up off the bat. Don't overextend your wrists. I'm going to say that a lot while you're here at the village. If it gets off center, just come to the side, compress down and in, and bring it back on center. Now, I'm going to push this whole clay down and out, and I'm going to go out further with it. Going out, and you're going to need what feels like a pretty nice little inner tube of a bicycle inner tube right there. You see that? And I want to stress not to make these tiles too thin. You want them to be about the thickness of what your pots are going to be, because the thickness of clay affects the absorption rate of the glaze. So you want a good indication of what it's going to look like on your pots. So that's going to take a nice little amount of clay. So when you have this clay moved out like this, you're going to push in with this finger, in and down, and start to create a floor. My thumb is holding the outside on center. I'm going to push in and down some more. And don't make this floor too thin. A lot of people, their first mistake is to make the floor too thin, and then it's fragile and doesn't seat well, and then not have the right angle. So I'm going to show you that I'm going to make the whole floor of this thing more than an inch. You see how much I've dedicated just to the floor here? I'm going to push that clay on the center. That's good. Now I've got all this clay out here to make a wonderful test tile wall. The other thing nice about a big floor is on the back side of this is where you're going to write all your information. And so you want a nice surface so that when this test tile is something gorgeous and you turn it over for your information, it's easy to read. So now I'm just going to grab this clay, and I'm bringing the clay up, but I'm also bringing it inward just a little bit. A slight little lean inward will help this not be tippy. So I'm going to do it again. And remember, I want the thickness of my pots. So I'm going to be just a little bit under 1/4 inch. And here I go up. Give yourself enough surface to see how this glaze moves on your test tile. So here it is. Go ahead and take a tool and smooth it out like you would have your pot. If it turns out that you know on your pots you're going to have a little texture, then take a tool and put a little texture in the bottom so that you can see how does this glaze break over edges. So there on the bottom half, you see I've put a little texture in there. I want to see how the glaze breaks. And it also works to slow the glaze down from running off the test tile. All right, so that is a gorgeous test tile right there, even walled, nice floor. I'm going to undercut in the front for my cutting wire to get under. There it is. And you also are going to want to wax the bottom of this pot, so give yourself a nice beveled edge for your waxing. Make it easy to work with. You might not wax over it, but you might. It just depends on what you're doing on the bottom of the pot. These test tiles can go in all different atmospheres. This happens to be a cone tin iron-bearing clay body Miller 900. So we can put test tiles in Glorifred, we can put test tiles in Bertha, and we can put them in the Kazagama kiln. Okay, so let me show you real quickly how I'm going to undercut this. So now it's loose off the bat, and in a second video, part 2, I'm going to show you how later when it's set up, I trim it and cut them into slices for all the different test tiles. So let me give you a close-up look. See the floor on the inside? See the angle tapering in? See the depth? This from here to here is probably almost 2 inches, so it's going to sit really flat, and it's got a nice height so that you can really see how glaze moves across the surface. All right, that's part 1. We'll get part 2 going here in a little bit.